RTO here. Hope you've all had a fab weekend. So we're back in business on the channel, and today we have got an album ranking, which is part 6 of the Iain. Part 5 of the Iain Gillan story. And today we're looking at Iain's solo projects that have were his solo albums. In between Deep Purple and Gillan and other projects that he's done, he managed to make 7 solo albums. So let's have a look at them. So coming in at number 7, we have his 6th album, released in 2006, and it's called Gillans Inn. It's an album by Iain Gillan, celebration his 40 years as a singer at the time. So basically you got redone songs from all of his career. Some really songs on here, some of his best, and it features people I think he's worked with and people from Purple and etc, etc. So we'll just have a look at the tracks because we all know these tracks. The first track on here is Unchain Your Brain. It features Joe Satriani, Don Airey, Michael Lee. Then Bluesy Blue Sea. This has again got Yannick Gears on guitar as in the original. Then we've got Date Lay a Dollar Short. This features Uli John Roth, Dean Howard, Michael Lee, Ronnie James Dio. Hang Me Out to Dry features Joe Satriani and Don Airey. A brilliant version of Men of War featuring Steve Morse and Johnny Resnick. Then we have another stonking track. This is a Deep Purple one, when a blind man cries. This has got Jeff Healey on it, brilliant guitarist, sadly no longer with us. Tommy Z's on it, the one and only John Law. Great stuff. Then we get Sugar Plum. This is Dean Howard, Roger Glover, Don Airey and Ian Pace. Then we get a great version of Trashed off the Born Again album. Again, he's teamed up with Tony Iommi to play guitars. We've got Roger Glover and Ian Pace. So basically you've got a Purpley Sabbath sound, and it is pretty good. Then there's a track here called No Worries, which is unreleased. It's pretty good. It's a good little rocker. Nice track. Smoke on the Water. This has got Steve Moore on it, Ian Pace, Roger Glover. Pretty good. Then we have No Laughing in Heaven, featured Don Airey and Roger Glover and Ian Pace. Speed Kings on here, featuring Joe Satriani, Don Airey, Michael Lee Jackson. Living on Borrowed Time, Steve Moore, Steve Morris, who does a lot of guitar work with Iain. Uli John Roth's on here, pretty good. I'll Be Your Baby Tonight, which is a Bob Dylan track, of course. Unreleased, but it features Joe Elliott, Ron Davis, Red Volkirk and Charlie Quill. This is a really nice collection of songs for me, and it does cover his career, and they're all good versions. And okay, they're not the originals, but he's done really good versions. His voice sounds great on them. They've altered it to suit him now. Absolutely brilliant album, and I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 7.5. Okay, then coming in at number 6, it's the 4th album, released in 1992, called Jerkazoo and Other Stories. Now this is another compilation album of unreleased studio recordings by Iain in the 1970s. The album is actually put into 2 parts. The first 8 tracks are taken from the soundtrack to Cherkazoo, a children's story laboured over by by Iain in 1972. They're very psychedelic, whimsical British pop, sounding like, you know, Sergeant Pepper's and Space Oddity. Now the second part were the first songs he did after he left Deep Purple. So these are around about 1974. There's a good cover of Elvis Presley on here. Now the lineups from these sessions have never been confirmed, but rumours say that John Lord's on it, Roger Glover, Pete York, Mike Moran and Dave Wintour. I think you can tell the tracks John's on. So the first track is an intro thing, and it is an intro. They're just talking and getting on with it. Then we have Cherkazoo. This is an acoustic song that's very pleasant. It's written by Ian Gillan and Roger Glover. It's pretty cool. Monster in Paradise. Yeah, it's pretty good. I think I know who's playing the keyboards on this. I think it sounds very John Lord. Pretty cool track. The Bull of Biraratis. Very Beast Class, very Sergeant Pepper's. It's quite a good track. Then there is a track called Intro. It's a solid track, mostly guitar and piano, and I think the piano was supplied by Mr. John Lord. Then we got Hogwash, a bit of a tongue-in-cheek, bit of fun nonsense rock and roll. It's great. Then we get Driving Me Wild. Now there's three versions of this on here. This is the more basic one, like a demo version, very 60s, quite basic piano and drums, not bad at all. Donkey Ride, it's a very acoustic track with a funky bass line, written by Gillan and Glover again. Pretty good, I don't mind it at all. Trying to Get to You, this is just a great Elvis cover. It is really good, outstanding track actually. One of the best tracks on the album. Then we get Ain't That Loving You Baby, a great rock and roll number, nothing wrong with that one. Then we get a faster take of Driving Me Wild, quite rocky but not the finished article. Music in My Head, this is pretty good. First, lots of screeching from Iain on this. Pretty good. Then we get You Make Me Feel So Good. Nice little rocker here. This is, I think, the way that Iain wanted to go. You'll hear this song sound very, very much going through his career. It's a great track, my favourite track on the album. She Called Me Softly, it's pure rock and roll, great vocal from Iain. Then we get the best version of Driving Me Wild on here. It's got a great guitar solo now, it's got much more feeling in it. It's a really good track. You Led My Heart, a real good bluesy song here. Love the strings in this, it's pretty good. A Little Share of Plenty, nice little rock track. It's got some great drumming. The Hammond organ sounds so much John Lord's, but you just don't know, but I think it is. Fantastic track. Night and Day, quite funky, and this is sort of the stuff he did with the Ian Gillan band with that jazz fusion. Pretty good. Way to end the album. This is a very underrated album. Just to see his compilation, people will, but it's not. It's a very good album. It's got a great mixture of tracks. We've got rock and roll, we've got rock, we've got jazz fusion. It's an enjoyable album. Go and check it out. And I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 8 out of 10. Okay, coming in at number 5, we get to the second album in his solo career from 1990. This was soon released after his departure from Deep Purple in 1989, when he was famously sacked. Well, Richie didn't want him in the band anymore. Feud. So on here we've got Steve Morris on guitars and keyboards, Abby Donnelly on the saxophone, Tommy Ira on the keyboards, Chris Glenn and Roger Glover do the bass, Ted McKenna, the great Ted McKenna on drums, along with Simon Phillips. Then we got Mike Donahue guitar, JP Peter Robson piano and keys. Backing vocals, he goes to his old mate John Gustafsson. Carol Kenyon's on here, Dave Lloyd and Harry Shaw. And the A-team horns do the brass section. Okay, first track on here, it's my favourite track off this album, it's Gut Reaction. One of my favourite tracks by Iain. It's great stuff, love it. Talking to You, another solid cut, brilliant track, strong track. No Good Luck, another of my favourites, love the riffs in this, it's got a really catching tune, the solo is good, and another fine vocal from Iain. Nothing But the Best, it's solid but radio friendly, not particularly something I don't enjoy that one. Living on Borrowed Time, it's okay, nice duo with Carol Kenyon, it's okay. Sweet Lolita, solid track, great rock track, but what does spoil it is the 90s sound. It just that horrible sound from the 80s and 90s, it just doesn't do it for me. Nothing to Lose, it's okay, it's just the production, it needs to be done again. Moonshine, great bass line, great vocal for me and some great drumming. Long Lonely Ride, one track I don't particularly like. Then we get Love Gun, this is fast, furious rock and roll, bit like Unchain Your Brain, brilliant stuff. And the last track is a traditional song, it's called No More Cane on the Brazos. It's from the Caribbean or something, and it's a superb song. Second favourite track on this album, is brilliant. Another solid album, not quite as good as some of the later ones that he done, but I think this is down to some of the production and when he was being pushed. I think some of that 90s production didn't suit Ian's style of singing, but the tracks that are good on here are superb, so I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 8.5. Okay, coming in at number 4 then. This is an album released in 1997, the 5th album, and it was just Iain Gillan and Steve Morris. It took they started recording this in 1995 but didn't finish until 1997. So you got Iain Gillan on vocals, guitars, and Steve Morris on, just got here various instruments. First track is called Chandra's Coriander. Very acoustic number with some flute, and it's a pretty good track, really like that one. Prima Donna, another really good track, very acoustic, great vocal for me and as ever. Then we get All in My Mind, really nice track. Ian's vocal's great. It's got that, and it's got this sort of mystical east sound. It is really good. That's Why God Is Singing the Blues. This is a straight down rock and roll number, really strong. Then we get this little folky thing called Gunga Din. It's folky Irish style, some great guitar work, it's an instrumental and I love it. Really diddly dee music, and I don't say that taking the mickey because I've got a lot of friends in Ireland, and I do like that track. Hard on You reminds me of a track that he did in his Ian Gillan band days. It's got that fusion feel to it, but it's a little bit more heavier. Very, very good track. Sleepy Warm, again, really pleasant song. So got a fantastic arrangement, and Iain sounds great on it. Country Mole, as it says, it's a little bit of a country song. Just shows what a versatile voice Mr. Gillan's got. I like it. You Sold My Love for a Song. Starts off with that wonderful Ian Gillan harmonica. Brilliant. Then it's this sort of bluesy song. Great track. Then we get a Day Late and a $1 Short. This has got a great mixture of strings, keyboards, great rock guitar, and it's a fantastic track. Then we have my favourite track on the album, Sugar Plum. I've always loved this track from the first moment I heard it. I love the little keyboard thing that sort of crops up all the way through the track. It's got a nice kick to it. Great vocal for me, and it's a fantastic track. Then the last track, Anywhere You Want Me, very rock and roll, very Buddy Holly. Love it. I love this album because it's got so many different sorts of genres on it again. He doesn't just do rock, he does rock and roll, he does blues, he does jazzy soul. It is a very solid album, an album that I play quite a lot, and will give this one an RTO ranking of 8.9. Okay, coming in at number 3. Now this it goes down in the book as an Ian Gillan solo album, but it's actually an album by Ian Gillan and Roger Glover, released in 1988. It's the first official solo album by Ian Gillan, and it's called Accidentally on Purpose. Got some really good songs on here. We've got Ian Gillan on lead vocals and harmonica, Roger Glover on the bass, Ira Siegel and Nick Monarch on guitars, Lloyd Landsman on keyboards, Dr. John no less on the piano, Andy Newark drums. We've got George Young and Joe Mendoza saxophones, and Randy Becker flugelhorn. Backing vocals on this are done by Vanessa Thomas, Christine Faith, Linda Mann and Betty Susman. Opens up with Clouds and Rain. This is wonderful. It's got a really nice piece of keyboard in it that runs through it, and some gentle guitar, and Ian's vocal in it is great, and again Roger's bass line really holds this track together. It's a superb track. Really like that one. Then we get Evil Eye, little bit different, but it's got a bit of horns in it. It's a terrific track. She Took My Breath Away. Again, it's a little bit different, but it works. Ian sings great on it. It's a catchy little tune. I like it. Then we get an interesting track called Dislocated. It's just very catchy. The horns sound great. Brilliant track. Via Miami, great rock and roll, great track. Nothing wrong with that one at all. Superb stuff. I Can't Dance to That, probably the heaviest track on this album. Great vocal for me, and superb stuff. Next track, Can't Believe You Wanna Leave Me. Great bluesy piano, great vocal again for me, and it's just phenomenal stuff. Then we get this track called Lonely Avenue. I love this. It's just like strings, a really atmospheric vocal for me. This is a solid track, and it was actually in The Rain Man. It's played on I think it's on the radio when they're travelling. You can hear it. It's a fantastic piece of music. I love it. Telephone Box, another great little rocky sort of track. There's so much diverse sound on this, and again, this is really good. It's not rocky, but it's poppy rock. It's really good. Another great vocal for me, and Then we get my favourite track on the album, I Thought No. Bluesy rocker, honky tonk piano and harmonica. The lyrics are just brilliant. Bit of tongue and cheek. Absolutely superb. Then we get Cayman Island. It's okay, I suppose. Very Caribbean. Not particularly my favourite track on the album, but I don't skip it. I came through it with it. Then we get a great version of the Sheb Wooley, the Purple Peeper Eater. Iain's vocal in this is spot on. He really gets into the spirit of things. Then we get a thing called Chet, which is a bit of a filler and shouldn't even be on the album. Okay, I love this album, except the last track. And the Cayman Islands a little bit suspect, but the rest of the album is solid. And I think it would have been a little bit higher if Chet and Cayman Island weren't on the album. But I still love it. And I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 9 out of 10. Okay, coming in at number 2 then. We go to 2009. This was written during the gap between Deep Purple's 2008 World Tour in the US. Released in 2009, March 6th, 7th album, One Eye to Morocco. On here we've got Ian Gillan doing the vocals and harmonica, of course, Michael Lee Jackson guitars, Rodney Appleby bass, Howard Wilson drums, Steve Morris does the guitars for the Girls on the Beach, Joe Menoa on saxophones, Lance Anderson on the Hammond organ, Jess O'Brien keyboards, Barraman Ali flugelhorn, Jaro Jasil's cello, and the Gillian backing vocals. One Eye to Morocco opens up the album's title track. Solid track. Great vocal from Iain. Brilliant stuff. Then we get No Lotion for that. Great rock and roll track. Very good sound. Great vocal from Iain, as ever. Don't Stop. Oh, it's bongos on this are terrific. Bit Santana. It's great. I love that sound. Change My Ways. Again, some great bongos here. It's a terrific track. And then it's accompanied with that. You've got this lovely Hammond organ. Oh, terrific stuff. Girls Go to Show. Love the guitar work here. Steve Morris on the fire. Great stuff. Deal With It. Start of this is really weird and freaky. You think, oh God, what's going on here? But then it goes into a great rock track. Great groove. Love it. Talking of grooves, the next track is called The Ultimate Groove. This is a bluesy track with some great Hammond organ. Great singing from Iain. The Sky Is Falling Down. Solid performance from Iain. Such a great singer after all these years. As I keep saying, he just alters the sound so he can still sing a good vocal. Then we get my favourite track on the album, Texas State of Mind. Nice rocker. Love the drum sound in this, and the bass line is just thumping. It Would Be Nice. Nice gentle track with some lovely trumpet on this. Belter. Always the Traveller. Again, one of these gentler tracks. But instead of having trumpet, we got some nice Hammond organ and sax. Terrific. And then Am I Getting Through Just? Love that deep bass in this. Nice keyboard, electric piano, good solid vocal from Iain. Another great album from Iain. From top to bottom, every track is good. Ian's vocals are singing. I like again, we've not just got rock on here, we've got jazz, we've got blues, we've got poppy. It's a fantastic album, worth a listen, and I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 9.4. Okay, coming in at number 1 then, we go to the second solo album. Well, it's actually second official, but because of with it depends how you look at it. It's the second solo album, but it's his actually third release, because Roger Glover and Ian Gillan thing was the first. Depends how you look at it. But it was released in 1992, and it was his last album before his second comeback with Deep Purple. So on here we've got Ian Gillan, Steve Morris on the guitars, Brett Bloomfield bass, Leonard Hayes drums. Guest musician on this is Leslie West on the guitar on Hang Me Out to Dry. So the first track is Hang Me Out to Dry. My favourite track on the album. It just opens with that cool guitar solo, great rough riff, and Ian singing is fantastic. Toolbox, rock. What a rock track this is. Ian's vocals are just on fire. Superb stuff. Dirty Dog, again heavy. This is really a heavy album, and I think Ian was making a point here. We'll talk about that later. Steve Morris, fine guitar player, another great solo. Can't Hear Horizon. This should have been on a Purple album, without a doubt. It's proper Purple, screeching all over the place, absolutely brilliant. Don't Hold Me Back, another great solo from Steve Morris, and also you get another blinding vocal performance from Ian. He's on absolute top form on this album. And then we get Pictures of Hell. Ian, fine screeching, brilliant. And again another fantastic heavy rock track, great drumming, great guitar solo, fantastic. Then we get Dancing Nylon Shirt Part 1. Deep bass line, but it's the drumming that makes this track. Deep drumming and a fantastic vocal from Ian. Bed of Nails. Well, again, everything you expect in an Ian Gillan song. Great guitar work, great screeching, superb. Gassed Up, excellent track. Again, thumping guitar riffs, excellent track. Everything I Need, Ian on fire again. Strong vocal, very strong. Solo's great. And then we get Dancing Nylon Shirt Part 2, which is a continuation of the first bit. Absolutely belting. Now this is the first of two albums that Ian made between when he got fired from Deep Purple again by Richie. This is the better album. Let's think about it. In 1990, Purple brought out Masters and Slaves with Joe Lynn Turner. It was pretty poppy, not a great Purple album. Ian brings this out in 1991. And Blue Masters and Slaves, Out the Water. This is heavy. This album really kicks. Ian made a point here. I am still a great singer. I can still do rock, and I think he wanted to make this album a far better album than Masters and Slaves. And it's amazing that Ian was back in the band for The Battle Rages On, and he stayed with the band ever since. I just love this album, top to bottom. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 9.5. Okay, we've nearly done with Ian Gillan. Next week, in the Ian Gillan story, I'm just going to round up on other little projects that he was involved with during his career. I've put them all together to make a nice little package, so I'll be looking at that next week. Classic album today, we're going to get the War Paint on, and we're going to look at Kiss's Destroyer. So join me for that later. Until then, bye for now.